Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the No Cap Podcast. Honestly, we apologize for last week. I kind of ruined the audio of that, but it's okay because this week we are back with a new guest. This guest is one of my favorite teacher in the school. Of course, he's my English teacher, Mr. Mathai. And as usual, I have my co-host with me, Kwan. We already know who Kwan is. So, Mr. Mathai, tell us a little bit about yourself, sir.
All right. Well, first of all, good to be here, Henry Kwan. Thanks for having me. Tell you a bit about myself. My name's Mr. Ben Mathai. I grew up in a small town north of here in Muskoka. I did my teacher's training at Western, then U of T, and I've been teaching in Northview for quite a long time. And now I'm here. All roads have led
Well,
here to the
to this
podcast with
podcast,
Henry
of
and
course,
Kwan.
of
I know I've
course.
made it.
You made it. You made it, sir. Uh, well, you also forgot you are also the funniest teacher in the school, of course. We all know that. All right. So to start off the podcast, I want to ask you, pretty light question, just to get the mood going. So I want to ask you about your summer, sir. How was your summer? What do you do? Like, did you go anywhere interesting? I mean, because of COVID and stuff, do you get to go anywhere at all? Like, it's most of us also all got stuck at home. So, is there anything
Uh,
interesting that happened?
No. I mean, it depends. It depends who your viewers are, right? If they're like young people like yourself, there's nothing I'm going to say that was exciting. I have a daughter, so besides going to the grandparents' place in Woodbridge here or in Stratford, Ontario, we did just what everybody else did. We sat around dreaming of being on a podcast for Henry and Kwong and waiting for the big day when this would happen. I have to tell you, Henry and Kwong, like when I was at my parents' place in Woodbridge like an hour ago, and I was rushing and I was going, and they said, "Oh, where do you have to go?" I said, "Actually, I have an interview." And he said, "Oh, an interview." I said, "Yeah, it's a podcast. It's interview. It's going to be streamed." And my parents don't know what this means, right? They said, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "I'm sort of going to be on TV, but on the internet." They're like, "Oh, oh, okay, okay. Well, then you should go. You should go." I'm like, "That's right." So my mom thinks I'm even more of a success.
Oh God,
And she
sir.
goes, "What is this?" I said, "It's the Henry Kwong show."
Oh,
And she
Henry
goes,
Kwan.
"Oh, okay, okay, okay."
Oh, okay. Oh, I
So
mean,
anyway, for the summer, no, nothing.
good sir.
Nothing too exciting. Just hung out.
That's right. Not everybody could be on the podcast. We have selected like from like thousands of people that we have in mind. Like, sir, like you're the special one for today.
Oh, I know.
I
Like,
know.
I'm
Of
glad
course,
I was on that list. Justin Trudeau didn't make the list.
Sir Trudeau.
You
I mean,
know.
I don't know. Trudeau might need to work a little bit harder for us. For us to consider him. But still. Anyways, so um, you are like a teacher for like how long now? I'm not, asking for your age, but like for a really long time,
No,
right?
that's
Right.
okay. At Northview, this is my 23rd year, and I taught ESL for about a year before that.
So like around 24, 25 years in total, right?
Sure, I did say 23, but if you want to round up to 24, 25, all right with
So,
me.
but like
I don't know how
ESL
I
too,
give you
right?
an answer.
ESL
You're like
too.
23. That's like closer to 24, 25. Okay, whatever nice
Sir,
round number you
whatever,
want.
sir. The bigger, the better, sir. Okay, so anyways, you've
All
been
right,
teaching
all
for
right.
more than 20 years, right? Basically, more than 20
Almost a
years.
quarter century. Yes,
It's
almost a
almost a
quarter
quarter of a
century.
century. That's crazy. But sir, like you've committed to this job like for such a long amount of time. Like, why do you want to become a teacher at first? Like, what thought went through your head when you're like, I want to do this for like 1/4 of my lifetime? I mean, given that
Oh,
you live
I
to
don't think
100 years old.
anyone quite thinks of it that way. Yeah, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I did know that my parents expected me to go to university, so I did well enough to obviously get accepted to several. But I went there really. When I think back, I'm glad I went, but I really shouldn't have gone because I had no idea what I was going to do. But like especially with first generation immigrants, they just expect you to go. They see university as a stepping stone to success. It's just not an option not to go. So I went, and then I floundered for a few years. I did well enough, but I was switching majors here and there. And finally, I taught like a PhD student. I was tutoring a PhD student from China in conversational English, and that went well. And I was thinking about the teaching option, and I thought, why don't I give that a shot? So really, there was no deep calling to go into
Okay.
teaching,
So,
and I knew it was like a 1 year, and so I went, and I was either I was lucky or blessed, however you want to say it, because once I started teaching, I'm like, yeah, I love it, but it could have easily gone bad because I maybe we you don't all know, but we all know people in different professions. They're not happy in their professions, and teaching is no different, right?
yep.
Most of the teachers I know, they're happy, they're professional, they take their job seriously. But there's always a few that you can tell if they had a chance to do it over again, maybe they wouldn't teach. So, honestly, I think it was just dumb luck. I wish I could say I had a plan, a long-term plan. I'm always envious of students, those that know early on. Like I know what I want to do, but I didn't, and I'm just lucky. It turned out to be a big passion of mine.
I see. So you basically wander around trying to find what you love, and then you think you're interested in it, and you just do it, and you
I
ended up
didn't
liking it.
really wander around. I just sort of sat around. I wouldn't say
Ah.
wander around. Wander around means like totally lost. Um, but I was trying different things, but I really didn't know. It wasn't until I actually started teaching that I realized this is fantastic. But I wouldn't recommend that at all. I wouldn't recommend waiting until the last minute because I know of people who go through. They say they want to be a teacher. They go through teachers college and they spend that money to go to school and university. Then they actually start teaching and then they realize I don't like this. In fact, I don't like working with young people. And sometimes they leave and sometimes they just stick it out. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's good to. That's why I always like these take your kids to work days, or I would encourage
Mm.
people if you're thinking of doing something, just follow someone for a day anyway, or offer to help out for a day. Get a feel for it, just to see if it's either A you love it or B you absolutely hate it. It's good to know both, right? So, I mean, how many people in the world? What percentage of the people are in jobs that they love? I count myself as one of the 1% of the 1%. And I think most people they go to work. They may not hate it, but they go. It's a paycheck, right?
Yep.
So I say, if it's possible to plan it out, if you can think about what you might want to do, if you're not sure, explore some options and don't get stuck. But um, our parents, it's okay for them. They came to this country and they have to work, right? It's not like they have a lot of choice necessarily. But we have choice, so there's not really, we should be able to do better for ourselves. And that means even if you got to cut me off if I'm talking too long here. But even
Sir,
if,
it's
say,
okay. It's
you
okay.
want to
You're giving
be,
good advice.
even if you want to go into a high status job, like become a lawyer or doctor, if you don't like that job, it's a bad decision. Now, if you don't like it, but it balances out because you make a lot of money and then you put your passion into your family or traveling, fine. Otherwise, you know how many people that are out there that they just, I mean, picture this. This is a horrible thing to picture. You wake up on Sunday morning just dreading the idea of going back to work the next morning. You just dread
Basically,
it. It's like
school.
a stress. It's like a stress all day.
It's
Maybe
basically
maybe
school.
for some people. Anyway, I'm saying don't get caught in that. Don't get caught in those. Don't be part of that group of people that wakes up Sunday morning and all day they're stressing about going back to work because they hate their job.
Sir, and that is why Mr. Mathai is an English teacher. His thoughts are very, it's really long and
I
concise.
feel like I feel like I can say whatever I want. I feel very free because I figured that you still haven't got the audio worked out, and this isn't going to be recorded, so we can say whatever we want.
So you're
I
basically
can
saving
even
the
swear,
podcast
and
at
it's
this
not going to
point.
make a
You're
difference.
basically
It's
saving
going
the
to be like,
podcast.
oh, Mr. Mathai, later on this week, you're going to say, I'm so sorry it didn't work out.
That would
You didn't
not
get
that would not be a
good
good
news is
feeling.
the audio is working. The bad news is half of your face is blocked out.
Sir, that would be a really sad sight. But like, for a lot of people who don't know, Miss Hammond, my math teacher, was on the last podcast, and the podcast is really great, and we had a fun time. And then at the end, I just have to email her and be like, Miss, I forgot to record the audio, so we're not gonna be posting this podcast. She replied, I get like she didn't get mad or anything, but I can feel like she got really disappointed because she had like a lot of really interesting stories. So I promise you, sir, I won't do you like that. I won't do you like that at all.
Hey,
So
listen,
I got it.
in my Am I too loud? Because my wife just texted me from downstairs saying you are really loud. So
Sir,
am I shouting?
no, sir,
Okay,
it's okay.
I'm gonna
Oh
tone
no,
it down a little bit so
Sir,
no, it's
I
okay,
I'm
sir.
not waking the neighbors.
yeah,
All
keep your
right,
wife happy.
thanks, folks out there. If you remember nothing else from this podcast, remember what Henry
Yep,
said.
yep.
Wise words of Henry. Keep your wife happy.
Anyways, yeah, wow. So you basically like, I can see what you mean though. Like a lot of people, like they follow the paycheck, and then they just ended up dreading every day they go to work. So I can like you're pretty. I mean, I don't know. Like I don't know that
I'm pretty. Thank you, Henry. That's so
like
nice of you
like.
to say. I appreciate that.
Okay, you're pretty lucky. I mean, you're pretty lucky. I didn't finish my
Okay,
sentence. You're
you
pretty
need to
lucky
finish
because
those
of that.
sentences quickly.
Anyways, so since you've been teaching for so long, right? Do you like
Yeah.
recall how was your first time teaching in like an actual class? Like how was that experience for you?
Well,
Like, do
I
you still
wish now
remember?
going back. I wish going back that I remember even thinking about it at the time, but I was too busy. I wish I had recorded myself in my very first week or very first class. That would have been cool to see. Um, I remember that I put my name on the board, Mr. Mathai, and I remember when the students first started saying Mr. Mathai, it just felt really weird. I thought that's my dad's name. Like part of me thought, why are they calling Mr. Mathai? It just felt weird. For my whole life up until that time, people called me Ben. That's my first name. And then
Mm,
for someone to suddenly call me something else, it just I felt like I was stealing my dad's name. But I got over that after a couple of days. So I remember that was the weirdest thing that someone was calling me Mr. Mathai. And I went home and I was telling my wife, I said, they're calling me Mr. Mathai. That feels weird. And she goes, yeah. She goes, I'd never call you Mr. Mathai. It's not like that's your dad, right? I'm like, yeah, yeah. So I imagine all teachers go through that, or professionals. When people start calling them Mister, whatever, they're like, oh, you begin to feel a little bit old when that happens. Other than that, I just remember working hard to try and, in your first 4 or 5 years as a teacher, um, you're up late nights trying to create lessons and marking. After 5 6 years, you've got those lessons, right? And you can tweak them. So like when you start out, you need plenty of warning when you're teaching a new course. But now they can say to me, like tonight, Mr. Mathai, we're switching courses with you. You need to teach grade 9 tomorrow. Then I've got like a bank of lessons saved up. You know what I mean? And I can just refer to that and move on. So yeah,
I see. All right. So, sir, after doing some research about you, in the first year I met you, I figured out
yeah.
one big dark secret. Mr.
You figured out
Mathai.
that I'm not black. That's a big secret that most people don't realize, but they do find out.
Yeah, sir, I'm not gonna lie. First time I see you, I was pretty confused. I was like, see, I was like, damn, is
I
he,
know you were confused because you called me pretty earlier, so who knows what other things are going through your head. I
sir,
understand, but that's okay to be confused these days, Henry. Um,
sir, but like, for real though, like, first time I see you, I'm like, the thought go through my head. I'm not even like, I swear to God, like, I was just thinking, I'm like, is he, brown? I don't want to ask you, but like, cause like that's kind of weird. It's like, he's come up to your teacher like, "Sir, are you brown or black?" It's kind of weird. So I just ignore that and just let my imagination go out. Maybe you're half
I
black,
got a, I got
half
a,
brown. I don't know.
I got a bit of a funny story about that. Years ago, a long time ago, I was in the grade 9 office, and these two Indian girls came in. They were young, and they said, "Is Mr. Sai here?" Because he was going to help us with our math. I said, "No, Mr. Sai's not in right now." And they said, "Can you help us with our math?" I said, "I don't really teach math. I mean, I could. I know that grade 9 math for sure, but maybe you'd be better off." And they said, "Oh, you're a science teacher." I said, "No, I'm not a science teacher." They said, "What do you teach?" I said, "English." And then they stopped. They looked at me and said, "Sir, what kind of brown person are you?" I'm like, "What?" Like, so there's
I mean, that is pretty weird.
There,
Most, I mean, not saying anything, but most brown
I
teacher
guess so.
teaches, some kind of science.
I don't know. I hadn't even thought about that. I guess that makes me very special.
Yes, you are,
A
sir.
brown person that teaches English. So for
You're,
all the brown people that want to teach English, I am like their hero.
yeah,
I'm the guy that's
You're
you
the
know
trendsetter, sir. You set the trend.
you're
I'm a
set the
pioneer. I'm
trend.
a trendsetter. I'm right up there with like Michael Jordan and Martin Luther King and all these
You're
people
really
on the
doing
cutting
it.
edge. We were
Yeah.
the
I
first.
guess you are
We're kind of
too.
like
Yeah.
Columbus that way, Christopher Columbus.
Yep. Well, I mean, sir, this is why I enjoy having teachers on. Like, you guys just carry the podcast yourself. You just like have so many stories. You're stored up over the times of teaching. It makes my life a lot easier. I don't have to talk as much. Anyways, well, I wasn't surprised about the fact that you're brown or black, but the question was, you're also like a comedian before, right? Like you started doing comedy when you were like younger, a couple years ago. I'm pretty sure. And then I want to ask you about like how do you get into comedy? How did like teaching and like comedy like go with each other? Like, it's kind of funny when I think about it. Like I haven't seen that.
Well,
I haven't
first of
I
all,
don't know any
I
teacher that do
still
comedy. So yeah. So I'm pretty interested in that.
you didn't know any brown teachers that do English either, so clearly
Yeah, you're
you've
you're
got
you're
It's
like
like
you're like
true.
you're a pretty
customer
special
experience.
character, Mr. Mathai. You're just built
No,
different.
yes, I'm I still do comedy. That's an ongoing thing. It's just that
Oh.
I'm not a full-time traveling professional that travels the country or something like that. Um, so I was in teachers college, and I'll try and give you the short version of the story.
No, sir. Make it
Uh,
the long version.
the long version. We've got
I
a
need I need
full
content, sir. I need
1 hour.
content.
Yes. And I know he's not going to have a lot to say about the hair question, so hopefully he can eat up time on this
Sir,
one.
what do you mean, sir? Your hair is shining. It's literally
It is. It
shining,
is.
sir. It's
I shaved it
reflecting the
exactly.
lights off.
See,
Like,
look. You see the shine,
sir,
on
it's
my
I
head.
can
blinding
It's
me.
see
It's
like
it
too
very
bright.
clear. It's very clear.
Uh,
angelic, angelic. No, I remember I was doing a sales job for a couple of years while I was at university, and one time they put us on a retreat, and they have these little activities for leadership, and one of them was name 5 things that you've always wanted to do. And so we all put our own list and we shared. And one of the things was just to try stand-up comedy. Okay, so it wasn't a burning passion. I thought that'd be cool to try it. When I moved to Toronto, I thought about the stand-up part, and I thought, I don't want to be one of these people that's like 50 years old, then looking back and say, oh, if I was young, I would.
mm,
Like, no, I don't want to do that. And even though it's not a burning desire to do it, I thought I'm going to do it now. Why not? So I
going after it.
yeah, whatever it is, you got to go after it. But it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't an ambition. It was just sort of yeah, I'll do it. Now's the time to do it. So at that time, you would call into Yuck Yucks on the Monday and try and get a guest spot, and the voicemail would say, "Okay, sign up for the amateur night." There's no audition. You just put your name in the voicemail, and if they heard your name a few weeks in a row, then they might say, "Okay, put this person up for the amateur night."
Ah.
Well, anyway, I kept calling in. That's what I was told to do. And they said, what you do every Monday, you call in the morning and afternoon. In the afternoon, you call back. And on the voicemail, it'll change and it'll list who the people are on that night. So hello, Henry's dad, or whoever that
Yeah.
is. So every Monday morning, I'd say, hey, my name's Ben, and I'd like to try for the amateur night. And then in the afternoon, I'd call and there'd be a list. Well, I think about week 4, I heard on the voicemail when I called in, welcome to Yuck Yuck's quest for funniest amateur comedian. And please submit your name. And I thought, what? I thought, no, they were supposed to say it's just an amateur night. I didn't know what to do. So I put my name in there anyway. It's Ben Mathai, and I'd like to sign up for the amateur night. Then I
Ah.
called in the afternoon. I thought, my name's not going to be on there because this sounds like a competition for amateurs. I haven't even been on stage yet. And it says, all right, here's the list for Canada's Quest for Funniest Amateur Night. So they listed off the names, and I heard my name, and I immediately started freaking out. I'm like, oh my god, I'm on tonight, right? So
I can
I remember
imagine.
I was supposed to. There was one class I skipped because I was so nervous. I found a room in the university that was empty, and I started practicing. I basically had my set anyway. They give you like 5 minutes, so I practiced my 5 minutes. Then I went and I went up to the owner because they were talking to all of us who were in the and I said after they talked to us, I talked to the owner on the side. Look, I've never been up, man. I've never been up. Is this a mistake? My name being? He goes, most of these guys are experienced, and sure, we put one or two of you that's like has never done it before, but what do you care? You're just doing it for fun anyway. I said okay, and I immediately started freaking out mentally. But I was getting ready, and then I went up. I did my set, and I was one of two people out of I think 13 to move on to the finals. It went that well, and I still have that tape.
You're
I had to
just
hear that.
gifted, I guess. You're just
Yeah,
built
no,
different, sir. It's built
yeah. So it was good,
different.
and I think that was the first moment in my life where I thought, "Oh wow, I have a skill that's actually really good." I always would tell jokes as a kid, and my dad was also a great storyteller. He would always be annoyed. Your typical first generation immigrant father, like, why are you always joking around and telling these jokes? No, it's not going to do you any good. And so that's what I assumed too. And then when I did it and I won that competition for that night to move on, I'm like, oh. And there's something about a room full of people and they're laughing with you. They laugh because they love your jokes, and there's no going back from that. So I went on to
Damn.
the finals. I didn't win in the finals, but by then it was like, oh, I'm doing this, and that's how I started. So that was a really long story, but that's how I started.
Wow. That's sir. Your list of like my list of cool people. I think you just rise like a couple ranks. Oh my god.
Yeah, and I think
That was sick.
your older cousin was I think your older cousin was there that night, and he said, "You're a brown person. Shouldn't you be doing math somewhere? What are you doing here in comedy?" I said, "No, I like to give it a shot." And he goes, "What kind of a brown person are you?" I'm like, "Damn,
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine the
what are you
nerves.
drinking?
Oh, I'm drinking
What are you drinking?
saffron tea. What?
Juan, what are
Why?
you drinking?"
Water, sir. I can't afford
You can't
luxury
afford
like
to
that.
buy tea. This is my
That's not the way
dad's.
you do a podcast. You guys should invest in an expensive mug so it looks like you guys are like high class and
Oh, I
you
see.
guys are good well.
Have my own
So,
like.
Like a mug with some bling on it,
I see.
so
I
that they
oh,
see.
know.
I see.
so
Yeah.
yeah, but sir, we're a low budget
Sir, but
podcast,
we
so
were like turbo broke. Like, where do we have the money to do that? Maybe
Right,
after the
right.
podcast pop off a little bit, we start getting that YouTube money. Maybe we'll start making merch. But right now, we'll stick with the normal mug and the water bottle.
How
Anyways,
many people watch the podcast? Do you know?
it fluctuates. But the first episode got like 200 something views, and the
Okay.
second closest one is like
So when you
170
say
something.
views, that means like you have no way of finding out if they're watching the whole thing, right? They could be just tuning in for a few minutes,
Yeah.
right?
so there's analytics on YouTube, so we can see like average view time for each video, and we can also see it's called like impressions, so it's pretty much how many people are clicking into like our video, so it's like a unique viewer. So because, for example, just because you have 100 views doesn't mean 100 people watch your videos.
Mhm.
Some people can rewatch it 2 3 times, and then that adds up to the views. So yeah, there are analytics that tells us which episode, like which episodes do well and which don't, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, Colin, I'm just mesmerized. You're speaking in full sentences. I've never heard you speak before, and now it's like it's clear that Henry is the guy that talks, and Quan is the brain. He has all the super hard stuff that he's got down. I thought he was gonna for a minute there. I thought he was gonna launch telling me how my computer works, but that's great.
No, sir. I do the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, he
All
does a
right,
lot of
all right.
like posting on other sites and stuff. I only record the video and posting it on YouTube and then promote it myself. So we share the work.
Okay,
So yeah. So
all right.
what was your thought? Like what was going through your head when like you got caught? Like I must imagine you must have like some moments when you're like I don't want to do this. I'm kind of scared or like something like that, right? You can't just be like fully like 100% like I'm 100% confident I'm gonna kill this tonight. Like it's kind
No,
of you
I
gotta.
mean, I was excited, but I was like terrified too, right? But it was like a cool kind of being terrified, and I didn't tell anybody that I was doing it. That was planned. I thought I want to do it on my own. I'm not going to tell anybody in case it turns out to be a disaster. And fine,
Right,
I've
right.
done it once. I have no ambition at that time to be a comedian. I just want to do it, and
Mm.
so no one came out. But I have a recording of it on VHS, and I was so happy. It was one of the most exciting nights of my life. I mean, I enter the first time I'm on stage. I've entered a competition. I've moved on to the finals. It was an incredible feeling. I was just so excited. I was like on cloud nine for months just on that.
So did you win though? Did you win?
No, I
No,
didn't
no.
win.
Ah, feels bad. But
But I do remember. I do remember. I told my parents that that night that I moved on to the finals with this other guy. My dad. I called my parents. I was so excited, and there was silence on the other end of the phone. And my dad said, "Please tell us you are not going to drop out of teacher's college." Okay, you're not going to. I'm like, no, 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 I'm going to finish. He goes, oh, thank God.
he literally doesn't care. He's like, do not drop out.
So any parent, any parent, first generation immigrant parent or otherwise, especially first generation immigrant, you come home and you say, I want to be an artist. They are not going to be happy,
Mm,
right? It would have been
yeah.
one thing if I had been doing comedy up until that time and my parents knew I was good at it. But
Mm,
suddenly, out of the blue, they'd never heard of this before. Suddenly, I do
see.
this thing and I'm so excited. And they're like, oh my God, maybe we should go back to India now and drag him with us so that it's not so late. He's going to end
Oh.
up in the street for sure.
Oh. So, man, that was pretty cool. Wow, man, you're so lucky, sir. Pretty lucky. Like, when you look at
There
like,
is some luck involved in it, but I do like I give my parents credit for so much, right? They
mhm.
gave me a good home and food to eat, lots of love. They gave me opportunities to go to school. But for comedy, I will give myself that credit. I mean, no one suggested that I do that. And on my own, I thought I'm just going to go and give it a shot. And I'm the one that did that. So we have to give our parents most of the credit. But for that, yeah, that's all on me. So that's one thing I take pride in, I guess.
All right. Well, that was pretty. I never heard of like the backstory. I already know that you're like doing comedy on the side, but I never know like how you got into it and like the story behind it. So knowing that was pretty cool. All right, so let's go back to like your teaching career, right? So
Right.
like what are some like the most like what are some like your favorite moments in your teaching career? Like what are some like the moments where like it just leave an impression on you like for like years to like come.
Uh, there was a time that a mother came and said, "Wow, you're incredible. I'm going to name my firstborn child after you." And that, no, I'm joking. That never happened.
Take a, hold up.
No, the thing with teaching is it's largely a kind of a one-way street. You teach to the best of your ability. And I think you would like to think that you're preparing, well, that's our job to prepare students for university, for college, for the real world, right? But we don't really know. We don't really hear from most of the students. You know what I mean? Some of them come back and visit. That's great. But there's no, you have to enjoy, I think, the teaching part of it, enjoy the students, and that's it, because we don't know what happens to them later. And I'd like to think, most teachers would like to think that, somewhere a few years down the road, they will you know, they'll look back and appreciate what we were trying to do. Whether we did it to their, expectation or not, at least they'll say, yeah, they did their best for us. But we're never there to see that moment. You know what I mean? So, uh, so I can tell you about like rewarding lessons and students that have enjoyed. specific lessons. But otherwise, how does a teacher know, right? I can tell you some horror stories, because those happen like just right away. But good stories means like lessons that connect with the students. They seem to enjoy it. Um, because often they don't necessarily connect. You work your butt off and you teach like this amazing lesson, and like right at the peak of the lesson, just when you've given like what you thought like is something amazing, you say, "Do you understand? Does everyone understand?" And then someone says, "Sir, can I go to the washroom?" Like, right. So
That's,
clearly,
that's really
yeah,
tragic.
yeah. I
Okay.
don't know. I'll have to think about that during the interview. If I find something that's great, there's lots of these moments, but they're teaching moments, right? I'm not sure how you like convey that to somebody else. Yeah,
See.
and,
See.
and I'm not trying to just be complimentary, but then there are moments like this, right? I'm in a podcast with you, and that's kind of a cool moment as well.
Ah,
That's nice.
thank you,
It's
sir.
something different. It's different. It's kind of interesting.
Thank you,
Don't let
thank
it
you.
go to your head.
No matter you mean,
Uh,
sir. I'm always humble. Anyways.
I'm always humble. I'm always humble. Yeah.
Anyways, well,
Um,
how about okay, you go, Connie. You any
yeah.
question?
So you mentioned you had those nightmarish moments.
Yeah.
Is there any that you can tell us about?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of ones that are appropriate to tell, and I do have one. Uh,
Sir,
well,
what
there
do
are a
you mean
couple, but the one that
inappropriate, sir? This podcast is.
well, inappropriate means I would have to mention their name. I don't want to mention
Sir,
names,
you could
right?
just
And
name him.
Right.
Out, just
anyway,
name him
forget
a
it.
random name. Oh,
I'm telling you, I think I'm trying to tell you one of my best stories, right?
okay, okay,
So
okay, okay.
it was parent teacher night. I'm like,
Mhm.
this is my second or third year teaching. It's grade nine. Parent comes in and she goes, "How is my son Alex doing?" And I said, "I'm sorry to say this, Miss So and So, but Alex isn't doing very well at all. He's not doing his assignments. He's not responding. He's not participating. And he's failed a couple of the tests. And while I'm talking, she's like crying. Like she's
That's.
really upset. And so I tried to keep it short, and I said, "Look, there's plenty of time to try and work with him so that he can pass. But unfortunately, right now." And she was sad, and I said, "I'm sorry, I upset you." She goes, "No, that's okay. He was not doing. He wasn't doing the best last year. He wasn't failing though. He wasn't doing the best. We were hoping that high school would be a fresh start." And she got and she said, "I'm sorry, I have to go." I said, "Okay." She gets up to leave, and she's gone for about, I would say, 30 seconds.
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking at my class list, and there's something bugging me, right? Something bugging me about that meeting. I can't figure it out. I look at it and I think, I've got two Alexes, and it's the wrong Alex. And I can tell her, right? I was telling her,
Oh
I don't know.
no.
I get up and I start running to the parking lot, and she's getting in the car and she's sobbing now, like she's crying for something. I said, "Oh, Mrs. So and so." I said, she goes, "Okay, yeah." I said, "I'm so sorry. I had the wrong Alex. Your son is doing fantastic. He's doing great. Look, here's his marks. He's got 80. He said he wasn't doing that great last year, but he's
No.
doing great this year." It's just,
No
and she was
way.
okay. Thank you, thank you. I'm like, oh, it's like, this is
No.
why I beat myself. I'm like mentally, I'm going, "You idiot. Next time, look over the class list and ask the moms their last name. Be sure." Because that mom, what happened is she wasn't supposed to come that time. She was supposed to come later, right? Coincidentally, you
Ah.
know what I mean? But
I
still,
see.
that's on me. So I'm like, oh my god. So see, thank God I caught her in the parking lot,
Ooh.
right? So
Or else Alex,
Yeah.
and then
Alex would have been
so
really
the
upset.
next day Alex was like, and he goes, "Yeah, mom." So she said that. So you really stressed my mom out last night. I said, "I'm so sorry." And I called her again. I said, "Look," she goes, "No, that's okay. I'm just so happy you're doing well."
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Oof.
Nice save.
Nice
Save
save, sir.
there.
You clutched it.
wouldn't deny save. It was a total screw up, and I, you know, uh, I'm glad I stopped her before she went home and beat her son senseless, or gave him like a talking to or something like that, right? Um,
Damn.
imagine if Alex showed up with a something like I'd be like, oh, so sorry, Alex.
Alex, I didn't mean it, but it happened.
I didn't mean, I didn't mean. Uh, most of the uh, most of the encounters with parents and students, especially the parents, have been good. And we're in a good school, and parents are usually their first generation, and they're working hard. They want their kids to do well, and the kids know that. You're not going to get a lot of, you know, messing around too much. There was a few years I taught uh, grade 9 geography, just one class a semester,
Mhm.
and I remember parent teacher night. Parents, especially the Asian and the brown parents, they go and they talk to the math teacher and the science teacher, and the English teacher, and then they come and they talk to me just because they feel they're trying to be nice, but they don't care about geography, right? They're like, well, how are they doing? Like, I can tell they don't even, because I ask a million questions to the science and math teacher and English teacher. For geography, they're like, okay, whatever.
Who
Make,
cares about that guy?
make
Wow.
Anyway, that's one story.
So I'm actually happy you help Alec out because I can just imagine his mom just.
This is the kid who was you collect these stories in your head. He had a different he really thought outside the box.
Mm.
I remember it was grade 9 and we were talking about I think it was global warming. This is way back, and I think something came up about endangered species. And I said something like, for example, a lot of these species are endangered now. I said, like, even in some places, like lions are endangered. And like, how would you save a creature like the lion? And then Alex sort of put his hand up. And I thought, what? And I thought to myself, I didn't really ask the class a question. It was more of a rhetorical question. But Alex said, "You have an answer, Alex, to how you can save the lions?" He goes, "Yes. You eat them." And I said, "What?" And the whole class just started looking at me like, "What?" He said, "You eat them." He says, "Sir, no, think about it. People like the taste of chicken, so they mass produce chicken. If you can get people to like the taste of lion, they'll mass produce lions, and you'll save lions." I'm
Oh,
like, "Wow." I thought,
damn!
yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah,
The
this
whole
guy,
class was like,
dude, this guy's 5 head. Oh my god, he's too smart. Oh my
yeah,
god,
pretty good.
what an absolute monster,
And this
dude.
is this is the guy whose mother I said, yeah, your son's not doing good at all. Yeah.
Oh, at least you went for the save. At least you could have just sit there and be like, "Well, I messed up," but you went for the save. I respect that. I respect that. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like if I was a teacher,
Alright.
I'll just be too bothered. I won't be bothered to just like, I made a mistake, whatever, man.
But the thing is, like, you might feel like that on the first day, maybe. But when you get to know the students a little bit, you can't
Ooh,
help but
then you start caring.
start to care about them, right? And you don't
Ah,
want to. And I thought this mom is going to go home, and Alex is going to see his mother upset for the wrong reason. I can't be
mm.
responsible for doing that to it anyway. Quan, did you have a question or something? You were going to say something.
Because I was just wondering how teaching has been different. Like not even just this year, but also last year. At the start when like because of COVID and everything, teaching online and stuff, and I feel like a lot of students they feel that like classes online has been like were like pretty bad. So I was wondering what was your perspective of teaching online school and stuff?
Well, it's a good question. I guess it depends. Some teachers thrive on it. They enjoy it. I do not. I like to see the students in person. I like to interact with the students. I mean, as much as possible as you can, wearing masks these days. Um, but teaching online, where most of the students, you can't see them, they're just alphabets, right? You know what I mean? Just their letter. That's a real drag. I don't know if I'm getting through to them. I don't know if I'm being effective. In a class environment, I can teach something that I prepared, and I can tell if it's going well. Usually it does, but sometimes if it doesn't go well, I know, oh, that, wow, a lot of the class is not getting it just by looking at their face, right? Now, online, you can say, is that clear? Is that understood? But it's better the live interaction, I think. So um, now because I see them in the morning, when I see them in the afternoon, even though I'm seeing a bunch of letters, I know who they are now. So it's a little bit better. And the afternoon classes, the online sessions are not very long. So I'll teach for part of it, then I'll offer the rest up for question and answer. So anyway, to answer your question, I don't like online teaching. Um, I would hate it full time, but that may be the way it goes. Um, if there's a way that I could force students to turn their cameras on, I could, but I don't think we're allowed to do that. So anyway, online teaching, as far as I'm concerned, it's not great. It's second best. You know, it's like you couldn't get the real thing, so now you get a second-rate version, a watered-down version of what could be in the class. Now, that's my opinion. Some teachers really do well with it, right? You know, they do talk with their students and they can teach effectively, and they don't have a problem with it. But for me, it's not great. But right now, I'm enjoying it because I get to see my students for 3 hours and 45 minutes in the morning. I know who they are. I can see them, right?
Yep.
So, uh, so this part I'm enjoying.
I mean, of course you would
Yeah,
enjoy the
like
class, cause
I
I'm
would
in it.
say because
So
like it's really easy. It's really easy to just type oh I understand or like just type yes, stuff like that. And also sometimes
Yeah,
students in online class they kind of their focus they kind of lose it sometimes. So it's
and yeah, and if you've been in my class, I like to have part of my class involves some classes anyway discussion. I often tell stories that are relevant to the material. Sometimes I use humor. I don't know how you can do that, you know, and be effective online. Now, other teachers, depending on the subject, that are a little bit more straight and narrow, and they have creative lessons, but in a different way from me. You know, they don't feel hampered by that, and it's fine with them. But then again, you would have to ask the students of those teachers if they find it as effective. You know what I mean?
see,
yeah, that's true. It's just because because for me English during online was really bad.
Oh, okay. Well,
Like
it's not. But also, you have to keep in mind too. In April, May, and June, when we were doing online, teachers were scrambling. We had never done this before,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so we
exactly.
were trying to figure it out too. That time has passed now, and now there's no excuse. We still haven't perfected it, but we've had a run through. I do feel sorry for the teachers that took last semester off and
Oh
or
yeah,
were away
yeah,
last year because of mat leave or something. Now they're back. They didn't get the chance to get their feet wet, you know, in April, May, and June, and suddenly they're here now. And like, what is going on, right? Like they
they
were warned, they knew about it going into it, but it's different from actually trying to do it. So I think those teachers are, you know, struggling with it a bit. I think their lessons are just fine and are good, but I think they, you know, they're going through what we all went through a few months ago.
yeah. All right. Talking about I guess comedy and if you enjoy comedy, your enjoyment of comedy and stuff like that. I was just wondering, would you ever plan on moving towards that as a career and like top teaching, I guess, or just move to a different career in general?
Well, I would never move to a different career um, unless it related to comedy. I mean, I love teaching. I think that's the main problem with comedy and teaching. I love my day job. I love going to school
Yeah,
and doing that. I mean, if I didn't like it or I thought it was an average job, I would have left a long time ago. So that part I like. But I think that decision was made long ago. When I made that decision to go into teaching, that was it. And
mm,
you know, when you start off in a career, if you're not sure whether you want to stay or not, you have to decide very quickly because I think there's a saying. I think there's a saying: in for three, in for 30. I think that's the saying, which basically means once you start working 2 or 3 years at a job, you're not going to leave that job,
Mm.
especially if it's like a steady paycheck and you don't mind the job, right? Like those people that are say to themselves, "I'm going to work for a couple of years and go back to school." That's tough because once you start getting a regular paycheck and then you think, "Now I got to dump all that into school," it's tough. So for comedy, um, I considered it back in the day, but I didn't progress as far as I really wanted to. I didn't make that commitment either. And to make a commitment, you would have to start traveling around, touring, not making a lot of money, hoping that someone notices you or that you know what I'm saying. It's a real artist lifestyle. So for every successful person that you see, whether it's Russell Peters or somebody, there's
David
like 1,000
Chappelle.
comments. What's that?
Dave Chappelle, you know that guy?
Of course. Do
Yes.
I know him? No, but I've seen his stuff. I actually went to see him in Detroit um, about 10 years ago. He was fantastic. But see, these guys are few and far between. For every one of those guys that are successful, there's like at least hundreds of comics that are struggling trying to make it that are barely making any money. Now, if you love comedy, if you love the profession, kind of like I like teaching, then you don't necessarily need to make a lot of money. You're happy doing it, right? But my point
Yeah.
is, if I went into comedy full time, I'd have to take a huge salary cut. I would also have to travel, and it's not really conducive to having a family
Mm.
or like to having a good like wife or girlfriend. I mean, what wife or girlfriend, if I'm being harsh here, but what wife or girlfriend that has desirable qualities? Why would they get with a guy that is taking off for weeks and months at a time? You know what I mean? It's just not.
Yeah.
There are some comics that have like happy marriages and kids, but those wives are very accepting. So it's one of those things that you have to decide when you start out. Look, I want to be a comedian or an artist or whatever it is. I'm dedicated to that. I know I'm not going to make a lot of money. Maybe I'll never own property. I may not have like children, or if I do, it'll be tough, but I'm going to do it anyway. That's tough to ask a 17, 18, or 20-year-old person to do,
Yeah.
right? But and yet,
Yeah.
having said that, if you want to be successful, you got to just go for it. You can't think. You got to decide. Do you want to be uh, good or great? Then you got to commit to it full time. And I made the decision not to commit to it full time. So who knows? If I had pursued it full time, I think I would have found some success. Would I have been rich? Would I have a house by a house or something or a family? I have no idea. No idea. Right.
Mhm.
It's a pretty big
Yeah.
gamble. I can see why people
Yeah.
just don't go after it.
But yet, to achieve anything great, um, I respect those people that go for it. You got to take that risk. And the way that we're raised, by first generation immigrant parents, we're not raised to take risks like that, right?
Yeah, always
They're
take the
not.
safe route.
I'm generalizing. I'm generalizing, of course. But generally speaking, they're not encouraging their kids to go to the arts necessarily. They didn't come here
Yeah.
and leave their family behind, so you can just risk it all to. So if you do it, great. But there's usually a period of where your parents are totally stressed out, and then that's why my dad called me and said, "Look, you're not, you know."
Damn. Dang.
Anyway, if you're an immigrant or a child of an immigrant, risk taking, I don't think comes naturally to you. So it's always more impressive, I think, for artists that say, "I'm just going for it. It doesn't matter what my family says," because
See?
they've sacrificed a lot. Anyway, that's a long answer for your question.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's like once I feel like once you have something stable though, then you can. It's like up to you if you want to pursue something risky.
No, I
Yeah.
don't think it works like that. I don't think it
Mm.
works like that. I think other people, what you say, what you just said sounds logical. Once you have something stable, then you can look to something more risky. No, once you have something stable, you're just not going to give up that stability. Once you have something stable and you're working there, then you get like a girlfriend or a wife, you start thinking about property, you start thinking about getting a car, payments, all that stuff requires stability. All that stuff requires a steady income, steady paycheck. And when you have that, you're not really gonna go in another direction. You might do it as a hobby. Lots of people have hobbies, but that's not the same thing. It's really not the same thing. Really, if you're going to do something, you got to just commit to it 100%. I never did that, although I've achieved some success in comedy anyway. Um, I say to anyone that's an artist, go for it full time. Don't look up. Don't look up for the first year. After a year, then you sort of consider how's it going. Do I want to dedicate more time? Then I'd say do a 5 year plan. Just go all out and do as much as you can. At the end of 5 years, you're still young. You can decide, is this really worth it? Am I in to do this for another 30 years? Am I okay with all the right? Or if not, then there's no shame in stepping aside.
I see.
But I don't think that you do something stable and then decide to do something else. I think you can do something else as a hobby, but you'll never give that up.
Yeah, because once you give it your all, right, and if you fail, it's okay to walk out, right? Because at least you tried. So I guess you won't
And you
regret it
have
in
to
that
do
way.
that when you're again, you have to do that when you're young. You can't like, for example, you can't meet someone. Again, I'm generalizing. You're meeting like say a girl, right? And she's a practical minded girl, and then you say, "Look, I want to pursue this thing, but it requires me to leave my job." I mean, she's well within her rights to say, "This is not what I signed up for. I didn't sign up to, be a girlfriend or the wife or partner of someone who's going to not have a regular paycheck yet, that kind of thing." Anyway, my point is, if you want to pursue something, do it while you're young. Don't wait.
See?
Like this podcast, this simple podcast thing, right? I guess it's not
Yeah.
that hard to do, but it takes some organization,
Yep.
and you're doing it. That's
Yeah.
great. Now picture doing this while you're working at a full-time job, right? And then you can see it becomes so much harder. Also, you might have someone else in your life. Now it becomes so much more effort to get this podcast together and all that. Whereas if you've already done it, right, then even if you have a job later on or someone else, you already have this experience. You're like, yeah, I can maybe put this together because I've already done it. Anyway,
Yeah.
That makes
Yes.
sense.
you really have to cut me off if I'm going on too long.
Oh, sir, I'm
No,
enjoying it.
it's okay, sir.
I'm enjoying it.
No worries.
Because I saw Henry nod off there, like his eyes closed for a second. And
Wait, sir, I
just
was
for
I was
just for
focused.
a
I was
second,
like
he
I
was
was like,
testing.
Wouldn't be surprised.
sir,
Wouldn't be
I was
surprised.
focused. I was like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
He was thinking about his. He was thinking about his next workout. Aren't you wearing that barbell shirt?
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
and
sir, because sir, I'm just saying because of this podcast, I quit the gym yesterday and today. So, it's a big commitment. Anyways,
they're probably gonna close the gyms down soon anyway. So
that's what I
it's a
mean,
good
That's
sir.
time.
Gotta
true.
gotta gotta
That's
go when it's
true.
possible, right? All right. Anyways, so like, what? So what is it about teaching that keep you going, sir? What is it about teaching that just keep you wanting to teach more and making you love your job? What about it making you love the job as much as you do right now?
Well, I mean, you'd have to be a teacher to understand it. One thing is, I like conveying the material. I like telling stories. I like interacting with students. I like being surprised by students, to be honest. Like that thing with Alex about the lions. Stuff like
Ah,
that happens.
I see.
Stuff like that happens all the time with students. They surprise you, like with how passionate they are with something, how much they know, approaching things from a different angle. And I like the challenge, to be honest. I like Shakespeare very much. I haven't read all his plays, but I have my favorites. Hamlet and Macbeth are two of them. And I like the challenge of trying to make people appreciate it because I know a lot of them either hate Shakespeare or just can't wait for it to be over. Well, and because I'm a storyteller, it fits with what I'm trying to do. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can maybe I can get them to appreciate it or like it through the way I'm doing. And, I think it works with some people and doesn't with others, but I like that challenge.
So you know what it
And
is.
then you also get invited to some cool podcasts once in a while. So that's good.
Yeah, sir, what it is about like Shakespeare that I don't like. It's not I don't mind the stories because I enjoy like going over the stories because I think they're pretty interesting. What I don't like is what I have to do with it, like writing stuff about it, like the
But you
stuff
can
you have
say
to
that
do
about
later.
anything. You
I
can say
mean,
that about any book, any,
yeah,
like
exactly.
once you
That's
got a
why I
good
don't like
work.
English. I mean, that's why I don't like English as much as I like math. Of course, I love English, but not as
It's
much as
okay to
math.
say you don't like English. At least you're being honest. You should own it. It's okay to say that.
That's true. I'm actually
Uh,
being honest. I don't like English at all because I just don't like writing in general. It's just not my thing. I just can't write.
I know
I think English.
a lot of people don't, but that doesn't mean it's kind of the way I see it is when a kid, and I'm not comparing you to a little kid, but when a kid says, why do I gotta? I hate math. This 2 plus 2 business. I don't like it. It doesn't matter whether they don't like it. They have to know basic math. For English, people have to know how to write, especially they have to know how to
Yeah.
communicate an idea clearly. Now, I feel like I'm teaching class now, but it's like if you go into a job, if you're in an entry level, when you go into any job that you're going to commit your career to, the first year or so is entry level, right? But then after that, if you're doing well, you want to move up. Well, how do you move up? Well, you're going to have to either write reports or communicate with a group. You're going to be expected to do that. If you manage like a group of people, whether it's 2 people or 10 or 100, you're going to expect to communicate with them through talking and writing. And if you haven't had the practice of getting to the point and making clear statements and all that stuff, then um, it's a misconception that people have. They're like, once I have the job, then I'm going to learn how to do this. Then I will be that way. It doesn't work like that. It's almost. I know this is going to be a silly question. This might sound silly, but if you've never talked to a girl before, right? And then, again, it's a weird example. But at the age of 25 or 30, you say, "Yeah, I'm going to talk to girls, and then I'm gonna really do well with that." No, it's not going to go well, right? It's the same thing with these skills. A lot of these skills you're going to use later on, and so why, you know.
Sir,
So I know some people don't like it, but anyway, yeah,
English to me is like vegetables. I know that's good for me, but I just don't like it.
that's
So
okay
yeah, exactly.
okay,
I
as
still
long
take
as
it. I still eat it.
you.
I mean, I still try my best to do well, but I just don't like it. So
I mean, there are people who like vegetables,
no,
just like
it's a
how there are people
generalization
who
thing,
like.
man. I'm generalizing, man. Just stop.
Well, no, because it's not. It's like because English is also about like thinking like critically, such as writing, and like thinking is
Okay,
like a
so
really.
let me give you an example of what I'm glad you brought that up. Let me give you an example of thinking critically or some kind of thinking. So you read Macbeth at least, and so when I'm teaching it, I'm teaching also the themes. Like for example, absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is one of the main things you get from Macbeth. Here's a guy that was at the top of the on top of the world. He's a general in the king's army. He was successful. He just won responsible for winning a major battle against enemies of the state. Admired, respected, all of that. And at the height of that, that's when the witches came to him. He wasn't like poor and depressed and downtrodden and all that stuff. Um, and what Shakespeare's teaching us there, for example, it's not when you're like low and suffering in a miserable state that you're weakest. He's suggesting maybe you're weakest when you're at your highest point and you think you're on top of the world and you're invincible. That's when the witches come and that's when they tempt him, right? So there are some lessons. Now, back to absolute power corrupts absolutely. We talk a little bit about that in class. So here's where it comes into play. Say a few years later, you're watching politics or something. You're watching the US or Canadian elections or someone talking about that. You have already, or you get into a discussion with people, you have already thought about the nature of leadership, the nature of power through Macbeth. In science, they say you develop neural pathways for new things that you learn. Does that make sense?
yeah.
And those pathways are already there. It's not as if, like, if you're talking to someone about our prime minister or premier. It's not as if you say, "Oh, remember Macbeth?" No one does that, right? No one does that. But what I'm saying is, you've thought about leadership, and you've already taken that basic step. You're at another level. Whereas someone else who may haven't studied that, they're starting from ground zero.
Mm,
And they're thinking, "Oh yeah, I guess leadership does corrupt you." But you're thinking like, "Yeah, don't you know that? You've already thought about those things."
I
You see what
see.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's just one small example of. I think you'd be a geek if, like, 30 or 35 years of age, you say, "Yeah, that leadership thing, corruption, studied that in Macbeth." And then,
Uh,
okay. may have even completely forgotten about Macbeth, but you've remembered that stuff, and that's
Yeah.
part of a teacher's job, right? So
Mhm.
anyway, I didn't mean to get all sciencey on you about neural pathways, but I really do believe that
I'm getting
themes and things like
for
that
for
you
for the
study in
for the
school.
people who needs a quick Macbeth review. There you go. You just got it from Mr.
There you go.
Mathai.
There you go. See,
Best
that's
English
why you got
teacher
to
it
cut
is.
me off. That's why you got to cut me off because I get excited about this stuff. I told you this shit could get me back.
Means you
It's
no, it
Me
means
okay.
you're
talking
passionate about
about
your job, sir. It means you're passionate. You're like,
By
yeah.
the way, me talking about Macbeth for so long, you just like lost half your viewers. Like they all just like once you post this and I start talking about this, then they'll just like, oh, forget this, and they'll leave. And it's like
Sir,
awesome.
sir, we don't need
Don't
those people
worry,
anyways.
sir.
We need people who
We
can listen for a
we
long
don't.
period of time.
Yeah,
Exactly,
it
sir.
doesn't matter to
It doesn't matter to
That's
us.
no one. That's no one, Henry. No one anymore can listen for a long period of time. The world isn't built that way anymore. It's
Yeah.
like, this is what's going to happen. A lot of people are going to watch this podcast, and like 3 minutes in, they're like, "Where's the fight scene?" Like, there's no fight scene.
Yo,
They're
how?
not fighting. There's no time travel. So I'm out of here.
I mean, it's a podcast. What do you want? I mean, someone's gonna be like, "Damn, why is this guy not like fighting with this guy, man? Come on, man. Why are they so happy? Like, what's this?" Maybe that might happen, but I don't know. Well, damn, that was pretty fun, and we have reached our time mark of 1 hour. So, Mr. Mathai, thank you for being on the podcast. I
Thank
appreciate
you so
you
much, sir.
coming on.
Thank
Honestly,
you,
you're
everyone. Thank
one of
you,
the
Henry
best
Kwong.
guests.
It's been great. This is like the best podcast I've ever been on. It's the only one, but
Exactly, sir. It's the
I
best.
have to say, it's, you need to write that on your resume. All right, Mathai, this
uh,
is the best
yep.
podcast he's ever been.
Exactly. So yeah. Anyways, do you have any questions for us? Because like you've we've asked you so many questions already. So if you want to ask us anything, it is your chance, sir.
Henry, is that really your room, or it's like your where is it? Is it
Sir, it,
your?
it, it literally is
Is
my
it
room,
like?
sir. It literally is.
Are you in like the back storeroom of the Dairy Queen that you work at, or something? Is
No,
it
it,
like
it is my room, sir.
hoping that no one notices that you're not
Sir,
even at the front cash?
it is my room. Yes, yes, it is. It is a little
And that
bit.
guy that came in, is he your father really, or was it somebody
No,
else?
that is my dad, sir. That is my dad.
That's
He's
his
uh he's
boss.
he's
That's
just
his manager.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's my boss right there. He just came in to check in if I'm like messing around or not. He saw me talking to this guy over the screen, so I don't know. I might lose my job, honestly.
Okay, well,
Might lose it.
there you go.
Anyways, well, thank you everybody for watching so
Thank you
far.
very much.
Yep, and
Um,
peace, lady.